hold on.
I know. I'm skipping ahead of a big part.
Yes.
I'm like, don't talk about that. I feel awkward. Move on.
No.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to Whoa, That's Good Wednesday. I hope you're having a good week. But friends, it is about to get so much better because we have a guest, and I haven't even told her this yet because I was waiting till we started recording, that for 6 years of doing this podcast, almost 300 episodes, when somebody asks me, who's your dream guest, I always tell them, Priscilla Shirer. And Priscilla, we have you on. I'm not kidding. I'm like, I am fan.
What?
I know you're my friend. Like, I know that I have, like, you are so kind to me. I could call you. But at the same time, I respect you and look up to you so much and learn so much from you.
Oh my gosh.
That I'm not kidding. I have said that for 6 years. And today my team has been so excited. We are so excited for you to be on this podcast, to learn from you, get to chat with you. And so I'm thrilled for all the Whoa, That's Good podcast listeners to say that we finally have Priscilla Shirer on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Sadie, for having me. And I am going to just take this opportunity to tell you, as your big sister, how proud I am of you. And I am not just proud of you for the ways that publicly you are honoring God. I am proud of you for the ways you have surrendered your life to God all across the many dynamics, just as a wife and a mother, raising your children and sowing into your extended family. And then, the fields that God has given you to plow into and sow into. And you're doing that with integrity and with care. Like, you're not just mindlessly doing everything. I see you taking care in the time and the talent and the treasure that the Lord has entrusted to you. And so I want you to know, I am just so proud of you and I celebrate you seriously.
Oh, thank you so much. Like, that means so much to me. I've learned so much from you in that area. Like, just watching the way that you have lived your life, and the wife that you are, the mom that you are, the way that you do ministry. Like, I've learned so much from afar and moments up close too. And it has just been such a gift. So I am so excited to get to chat. I'm thrilled. And I know you have a new movie out, which is the coolest thing, The Forge. Like, what in the world? You are crushing it, friend. And I got to watch the movie yesterday, and I have to tell everyone listening, it's absolutely incredible. It is so moving. It is so powerful. When you first start watching a movie and you're thinking of who should see this movie, I'm like, oh, my brother needs to watch this movie and this and that. And then I'm like, whoa, this is actually speaking so to me, and everybody can learn something from this movie. So I can't wait to chat with you about that in a little bit. But since you are on the podcast, I have so many questions I would love to ask you. But to start, I'll ask you the question we ask every single person who comes on the Whoa, That's Good podcast. And it's a bit of a big one to start the conversation off with. But the question is, Priscilla, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given? I know. I drop it like it's hot.
Okay. I know. That's for real right there. There are two that come to my mind. Can I tell you both of them?
Please do.
One of them was from an older, wiser woman in my life. She still is in my life, but this was probably 20 years ago, that she said to me, you cannot do 1,000 things to the glory of God, but you can do one or two.
Wow.
And so she said, find out in this season what those one or two or three things are that God is calling you to prioritize in this season. And then ask him to give you the courage to say no to everything else.
Wow.
Then you can do those things to his glory. Then the seasons will change and there'll be different priorities. But for now, ask him, what are the things you've asked me to prioritize? And then do those things to the glory of God. But you can't do everything at the same time.
Okay.
So that has been life-shifting for me.
4 minutes in, and I'm like, can I go get my notebook and write this down? Because, that's really good advice. I need that. I needed that.
Oh, don't we all? In every season of life, we all need that, because there are always so many good things, opportunities, invitations, whether on a small scale with friends that they want to do or on a big scale with ministry or business or whatever. But just because everything is a good thing doesn't mean it's God's thing for you in that season. So we have to have patience and trust that seasons change and to honor this season while we're in it,
Wow, that's good.
So that's been a compass for me. The other thing is that my mom, throughout her life, and she's in heaven now, but throughout her lifetime in different ways. But then in the last 2 months of her life, when we were really concentrating on the reality that she might be transitioning to heaven, this was at the end of 2019, she said to us, like, emphatically over and over again, the most simple thing. She said, stop and smell the roses. And what she was saying was, don't forget to enjoy the journey. Like, she wishes my mom enjoyed her life, but her life was so busy and so full, building church with my dad, raising kids, doing all the things you have to do in life that are important things. She wasn't saying neglect those. She was saying, oh, through the journey, take a moment to stop and smell the roses wherever you are. Like, what brings you joy? Do that. Make time for that. Prioritize reading the novel when you can, or taking the bath, or meeting a friend for coffee. Or if you're in a city, don't just be there to do the thing you're there to do, but take 3 extra hours, delay the flight so that you can just go by that museum. She was just saying, take a moment to pause and actually enjoy, just live your life and enjoy the parts of it that God has given you opportunity to.
That's so great. I love that so much. And I feel like I've experienced that more now as a mom, where it's like, used to, I would be more, in and out places, which now, if I don't have the kids, I am. But when we do have them, like, we're taking more times in cities to, like, oh, what's fun here that we can do with them? And you just see it so much more. And, like, I don't know, that's such good advice, and something that I want to implement in my own life. And I love how your second piece of advice and your first piece kind of go hand in hand, because if you do say yes to fewer things, then you're actually able to slow down enough to enjoy it. And I feel like when you say yes to so many things, then that's the problem. You don't have time to actually enjoy what you said yes to, because you're so busy going on to the next thing that you said yes to. And man, I've gotten stuck in that cycle a few times. And so I love that. And this is the coolest thing about asking that question to people at the start of the podcast, because one of my questions I had for you for later in the podcast was, I have seen this about you, is that you say you do so many things, but since I know you and I've been around you, and even people who know you too, you are picky with your yes. Like, you don't say yes to everything. You actually say yes to few things, which is a good thing. And people listening are like, that's not true. She does a million things. And you do, but you're very intentional with your yes. And I was going to ask you how you got to the place of, like, discerning what to say yes to, what to say no to. And I just love, because it almost always happens, one of the questions I had prepared, you answer in your best piece of advice, because it's what you're obviously living. It's what someone told you. And so that was really, really cool to hear. So I want to hear so much about your story, because, like I said, I followed you for a long time, learned so much, but I don't really know a ton about the backstory. So your dad is amazing. I actually have the Tony Evans Bible study. Like, my Bible is his commentary. So, I'm learning from him. Growing up, just seeing your dad do what he did, when you looked at him and watched him, did you ever think, like, I'm going to follow in his footsteps, I'm going to preach, I'm going to speak, I'm going to write like that? Like, did you think that growing up? Was he kind of your example? Or what was that like?
Well, in hindsight, I realized he was my example, but in the moment, no, I had no aspirations for ministry at all. Not because I had a distaste for it. It just never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that ministry would be a part of my life in a full-time capacity at all. So no, I had completely different ambitions. When I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Houston and studied broadcast journalism. I wanted to be a news anchor. So that's what I studied, radio and television, and I was willing to graduate. And then, back in the day, what you did was get a job for, $12,000 a year in Podunk, Nevada, being a first year associate on some news station. And then you slowly climb the ranks in news. And that's what I wanted to do. So that's what I went to school for. And the Lord completely, just through a series of events that sometimes felt really disappointing. I mean, the bottom line of it is, after I graduated from college, I did get a couple of opportunities in television. And as soon as I would get the opportunities, the doors would close. I mean, I barely had been at that station for a minute, or barely had gotten 1 or 2 opportunities to actually do the thing they hired me to do. And either the show would close that they'd hired me for, or the station would say, we don't need you anymore. I mean, it was like an assault when you're in your young 20s and you're just getting started, and every opportunity seems like it keeps folding in front of you. It really does feel devastating. and feel like it's an assault against yourself, like
Yeah.
that you are the problem and you're not good enough for the job. So I remember feeling that way. But as the Lord was closing these doors, he was simultaneously opening up these other doors. And again, this is something I can see in hindsight. In the
Right, right.
moment, you don't recognize that is happening.
Yep.
Apart, honestly, from older, wiser people that have clarity, that are walking alongside of you in your life and are saying, excuse me, ma'am, don't be discouraged. Let me show you what's happening here.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to think it was like I woke up one day and was like, oh, forget the disappointment. I'm going to just go do ministry. No, it was like these doors were closing. I was devastated and about it. But all the while, beginning at the end of my college years into graduate school, every now and then someone was calling and asked, would I come and share a little Bible study? And I did that. And most of the time it was to 8 women somewhere, and I'd drive 45 minutes and share God's word. And they'd give me gas money and a chicken dinner and send me on my way. And then somebody else would call and there'd be 10 women there, and I'd do the same thing. And then a cousin of mine who lives in the on the East Coast, she ended up coming to Southern Methodist University for her undergraduate degree. She's younger than me. And she went to SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So when she was there, she called me one day and said, hey, I cannot find like a Bible study on campus. And I was just wondering if you'd come meet with me and my friends. And at this point, I was probably 23. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And to make a long story short, for 5 years, I just weekly did this Bible study for never any more than 10 girls that met at SMU. Wow. And I did not know. You could not have told me in a million years that the preparation, the study, just the discipline of preparing to talk to those 10 girls, of relating to them, of trying to figure out what illustrations will make this portion of scripture come alive to them, listening to them and hearing them. I had no idea that would be the framework and help me to build the character required for a ministry that he was assigning to me for women in a larger space. So no, this was not, to answer your question, this was not something that I planned for, strategized, would have even imagined would be my life. But the Lord just very clearly started paving a way. And then wiser people around me started to help me to see what God was making clear.
Wow. That is so cool. I have so many thoughts because in a very similar way, it's actually really similar because whenever I was younger, even like middle school, I thought I would want to be a news anchor. I thought like that will kind of be the path I take because I have like home videos of me saying, what's up everybody? This is the Sadie Robertson show and today's weather forecast, like I love kind of like reporting, anchoring and different things like
You're
that.
You're kind of doing that now,
which
by the way.
is so funny. I know. Isn't that hilarious? That's the thing where that God was using all these tools. And I think so many times people think, okay, well, it didn't work out for the news thing, so that's over, the TV thing. And then here you are and you're acting and you're in front of the camera and you're doing the things. And the same for me. Yeah, it wasn't that. It was something different. In hindsight, you can see that. But for me, it was very similar. Like in high school, whenever my family show started and all of a sudden our lives are like blown up and, junior year of high school, I'm on Dancing with the Stars and everything's so crazy. And yes, I see that that's such a blessing. Hindsight, of course, God was doing so much, but at the time it felt really hard. Even though I was also appreciative, it just felt really hard because I felt like everything I had planned for my future was kind of like completely changed. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the path God's opening up for me, and I got excited for it. And I was like, maybe I'll do acting and TV stuff and movies. And all of a sudden, it was like all of these roles I started getting offered were completely against the things that I really believed and my morals stood for. So the doors were closing, and yes, I was a part of them closing. I was saying no, but it still felt so hard to say no to because it was like, okay, God, if my plans I had before this aren't happening, and now you've elevated me to this platform where all these doors are opening, but I can't say yes to them, then what do you have for me? And I really didn't know, and that actually felt like really hard. And so I was just like praying so much about it and all this stuff. But in the meantime, I was leading Bible studies. And that's like what I had done since 8th grade. In 8th grade, I was like leading the 5th graders in Bible studies. And then, in high school, I was leading a Bible study for my friends. And then I started dating someone in a different state, and I led a Bible study there. And like everywhere I went, I just led Bible studies because that's what I love to do, is like read the word, teach the word. And I wouldn't have looked at it like I'm teaching the word. I would have looked at it like I'm just sitting and sharing, and we're diving into the word together. I just love that kind of stuff. And so, yes, hindsight, I can see what God was doing, but at the time I really didn't know. And then one thing led to another where God showed me this path, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And people called it out in me, like Louie and Shelly telling me that God's going to use my voice to speak to this generation. And I was like, what? I didn't know what that even could have looked like until God just kind of started opening those doors. But it was what I had been doing the whole time. And so people always ask me, like, how do you do what you do? Or I want to do what you do. And I always tell them, start a Bible study, because that is like at the heart of what I'm doing, you know, and that's kind of how it all started. And so it's so cool to hear your story. There's so many similarities. One thing that you mentioned was, as you were preparing for those 5 years of that Bible study, you were thinking like, what illustrations could show them this scripture in a more powerful way, which one of my favorite things about your speaking, your preaching, is your illustrations. You are like queen of analogies. I can think of like 10 in my head right now. I have to refrain from bringing up because we could talk about it all day, because I watch your sermons so often. But you're so good at that. And actually, whenever I started speaking, I remember I wanted to get better at that. I was like, God, give me analogies, show me things, you know, in life, help my eyes to just be attentive to those things. And then I started watching your sermons to learn from how you would transition from like a really great story to like this really powerful moment. And so people sometimes ask me like, how do you do that whenever you're speaking? Like, I want to get better at that. And I say, well, I would always go watch Priscilla's messages, and I'd watch it the first time through and I'd learn from what she's saying. And then I'd watch it another time through and I'd learn from how she's saying it. And it helped me grow in how I was doing that. So I know that might sound funny, but in some ways I studied from you how to do that. And it's cool because now people say to me sometimes, they'll be like, I love how you tell stories. It's kind of like Priscilla Shirer. And I'm like, that's funny because that's who I learned from as I watch videos and different things. But it illuminates people's minds to see something in scripture that maybe it didn't connect before, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I get it now. People sometimes wonder, like, because again, they'll say, how do you do that? And I'll point to your videos, or I'll kind of explain in some way. How would you articulate how you come up with illustrations? Is it something that you're just constantly seeking? Is it something God drops in your spirit? Like, can you put words to how you study in that way? Y'all, in this hot Louisiana heat, it can be hard to stay hydrated. When it comes to staying hydrated so you can live your best life, Element has you covered. Element is a zero sugar drink mix that includes everything your body needs and nothing it doesn't. Each pack delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes, but with no sugar, no artificial colors, or ingredients that often show up in a lot of other electrolyte drinks. Element is formulated to work for anyone and everyone, even people who live on a keto, low carb, or paleo lifestyle. When we sweat, we lose a lot of essential electrolytes like sodium. Those electrolytes are responsible for hundreds of functions in our body, such as fluid balance and hormone regulation. And if they're not replaced, it can lead to some rough symptoms like headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, and sleeplessness, which I've definitely experienced whenever I don't drink enough water. That's why Element is used by everyone, from professional Olympic athletes, U.S. Special Forces teams, and workout buffs to people who are just trying to live their everyday life like me and you. Plus, now you can stay hydrated in a whole new way with Element Sparkling. I actually have a can right here to show you guys. It is the same zero sugar electrolyte formula you know and love, but in a 16-ounce can of sparkling water, which I love because I love sparkling water, but I don't always feel as hydrated when I drink sparkling water. So it's so nice to have a sparkling drink that also makes you feel super hydrated. I love having another option in the battle against sugar and stimulant-loaded drinks. This tastes so good. It kind of gives you that feel of you're drinking, Christian drinks a lot of energy drinks, and he's trying to get off that, and this has actually helped him do that. And so I love Element because it really does give your body everything it needs and nothing it doesn't, and it tastes really good. It's just different. Right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packets free with any purchase. Be sure to try the new Element Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water, and claim your free sample pack today. Visit drinkelement.com/whoa. That's drinkelement, drinklmnt.com/whoa.
Well, to be fair, I grew up with a pastor who happens to be my dad that is a master orator. Like, again, this is something you don't realize in the moment because you're just, he's your pastor or he's your dad or whatever. And then you look back and go, good Lord, I was sitting in a master class for just the art of communication my entire life. So
Wow.
every Sunday since I was 1 year old, all I've heard is my dad preaching. And Tony Evans is a gifted communicator, like unusually,
Yeah,
So
totally.
I thought this is the way every church was on a Sunday, that there were illustrations and then there was clarity in the message and it was exegetical and I knew where he was in the text. And I just thought this was normal. And then, of course, as I've gotten older, I do realize what I'm so grateful other people say to us all the time, that your father is such a gifted communicator. So I have to recognize the fact that I was in a master class my whole life. And my father is, he never preaches without illustration. And so I just thought this was a normal part of how you communicate and to make sure your audience is absorbing what you're saying.
Right.
Because the reality is your audience is only going to remember 10% of what you've said. So if you spend your time saying too much of anything, they actually are only going to remember this teeny small sliver. So what is better use of your time is to make sure that you're making a solid point and then use the rest of the 30 minutes, if you have 30 minutes or 20 minutes, to make sure you are just emphasizing that point with illustration,
Great.
with application, and with observations from the text. You can't say everything you know. You have to say, what is the point? And then anything that does not undergird that point is for another message. It's not for this message. Because the 10% they absorb, you want that to be the point that you were trying to make. And illustration is one of the most important ways to make sure that a message, basically illustrations are incubators that house the principle that you are trying to communicate to an audience. And so to the extent that this incubator is created, that is the extent to which you can really cultivate this idea or theme or biblical principle that you want to take root in their souls.
Great.
So for me, and this, again, is something that a preacher that I admire so much, who's in his 70s now, he said to me many, many years ago that he would keep, I wish I had it with me, he would keep a little black book with him, which I got one of, I still have. But now most of the time, instead of writing in a little black book, I use the notes section on my phone. And I just have a file that says illustrations in the notes section of my phone. And it is filled with things that happen in regular everyday life that occur to me, that they are shimmering with the possibility of illustration.
Great.
I don't know yet what they're going to illustrate. I don't know exactly what verse they're going to connect to. I don't know what message the Lord might give me in the future or what chapter I might be writing in a book one day that might help to emphasize the point. All I know is, this is interesting.
Yes.
It's something somebody says, or it's a commercial that I see, or it's something that's just happening out in the world. And I realize, oh my goodness, if I don't write that down, number one, I'm going to forget it.
Yep.
And number two, whatever sense of sacred awe I feel that's attached to it, I need to go ahead and record it while I'm in the moment of that. So I'll just put it's probably down to number 329 on my phone. And I will just put 329. And then I just put a couple little sentences that will remind me of the thing that I saw happen in traffic the other day. And then when I'm creating a message or I am writing chapters in a book, I will just scroll through, and that's a habit of mine, twice or three times a month. I might just kind of scroll through my illustrations and just kind of remind myself of some things that are there. And then one of them will leap up off the page and it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need for this message I'm working on, or exactly what I need for this chapter that I'm writing. And so for me, and this is what I learned from that preacher that is now 70, I remember him saying to me that one of the things from Luke chapter 2, I believe, that it says about Mary when she's watching her little boy Jesus running around, get lost in the temple. She can't find him. There's this one little verse that says, and she treasured all of these things in her heart. And his point was, we have lost the art of treasuring the things that God is trying to use to speak to us. It goes one ear and out the other. We might even acknowledge it. Thank you, Lord. That was a great little moment. But treasuring it is making a record of it. It's sitting on it. It's meditating on it. It's coming back to it. So for me, that means writing it down.
Great.
And I've even asked the Lord to helped me to be more disciplined with that. Because sometimes it'll be in the middle of the night that I remember something and I'm like, I am not getting up in the middle of the night to write this down. I'm tired. I'm staying asleep. But I want to be a good steward of those bits and pieces of illustration that I'm not exactly sure how they connect yet, but I know there's something on them. And so I want to treasure them. Yeah.
You just articulated that so beautifully. Like, I am like, yes, yes, yes. That is exactly what it's like. And also encouraged me to be a little bit more disciplined. If I need to write a notes thing, because I'm constantly like, where did I write that down? What note was that in? I just need to have one file, because it's so true. Someone asked me the other day, they're a speaker and they were asking me like, okay, how do you form sermons? I'm like, oh gosh, I couldn't even tell you. I don't have like a structure. It's kind of different every time. It's really like sitting with the Lord and just listening, and then kind of one thing leads to another. I wish I was like, okay, I'm going to have analogy here and scripture here, but that just doesn't happen. And I was like, I guess the best way I could say it with these things is I think about Psalms 1, 2, and 3. It's like, for those who meditate on the word day and night. And I was like, it really has to be just like a meditation. And it's so cool. It's like, as I'm thinking about something so much, like I have this message coming up and I'm thinking about those people and I'm thinking about kind of the overarching theme of what I'm going to talk about, because I'm thinking about it so much in any of those quiet moments, or even not, even in the busy moments where you see something that is like, oh, that's actually what I'm trying to say. This is perfect for this moment. It's like it just attaches itself to that thing. And I love how you said, I can't even remember exactly how you say it, but it's like there's something on that. Like some things, it's like I'm not sure how that's going to come into play, but there's something on that I can't stop thinking about. And then if you give it a little bit more time to meditate on it, then you're like, oh, wow, like that's so cool, you know? And I had that moment the other night. I was like, there was a million things going on, and I finally got the kids to bed, and I was like, I'm gonna go clean out their toys, which I was like, why am I doing this right now? Feels like I should not be cleaning out the toys in this busy week. But it was while I was cleaning out the toys that the Lord began to like speak to me this analogy and this thing. So it can be any moment. It's just if you have your heart set on that, your mind set on that, and you're asking him to speak, he will. And it blows my mind every time. I think that's why I love that there's no formula to the messages, because every time it's a journey with God, and it's so exciting as he's like unveiling the word to me. One, he's teaching me before I ever get to go and share it with anyone else. And it's like such a fun journey. So it's so cool to hear that that's similar to how you do things. It is amazing because you are, you speak, you preach, you write, you have books, Bible studies, all that stuff, and you act, which just so cool, because not only do you act, you're a great actress. And in this movie,
oh my gosh,
the first 5 minutes, I'm like, first of all, she looks amazing. Second of all, she just grabbed the attention of every mom in the world who's going to see The Forge. And third of all, she's an incredible actress. Like, it's so amazing, which I'm about to ask you all about The Forge. But first, just in all the different roles that you do, and obviously this is not mentioning that you're a mom and a wife and all those things, but in the specific like jobs you have, which one do you feel like there's one where you say like, that feels like I'm the most confident in? The other ones I'm doing because God's opened that door, but this kind of feels like my lane. And how do you overcome those insecurities to say yes to the things that aren't necessarily your lane, but something that God's opened the door for you to do?
I would say the one that is probably most natural to me is speaking, and the one that is message preparation. Let me just separate that from speaking. Message preparation is very hard for me. It is something that is a constant, for lack of a better word, thorn in my flesh, where sometimes if in years gone by, and even now, if I'm not careful, it can be so tedious and arduous that sometimes I'm like, Lord, is this what you've called me to do? Because this is not supposed to be this hard, is it? But if I separate the message preparation, actually delivering a message to people where I can see their faces, sort of see where the Holy Spirit is causing something to land on them, or sense in the room where there is something happening that's beyond just the words that I'm saying. That to me is just something that I'm incredibly endeared to, and there's just nothing like it.
That's cool.
Other than that, well, including that, but other than that, everything else that I've done, it is only because the Lord has given opportunity and through a series of events has confirmed, despite your insufficiency, despite this is not your skill set, despite the fact that you are not necessarily qualified or experienced in this way, I'm inviting you to join me on this journey. Writing, no English teacher I've ever had would say that I would have written a book ever.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, with acting, I mean, there's no reason why that I should have been in War Room 10 years ago, which I can't believe it's been 10 years ago. And then I thought that would be the only time I would ever do it. I said no at first when they called me to ask me to do it, because I thought to myself, everybody in the world has seen a movie that could have been good, but that one person that thought they could act was in it. And it destroyed it. So I told the directors when they first called me about that one, I said, no, y'all, like, I actually texted them the name of some African-American women who are actors who I didn't know personally, but I said, they would be so great. Like, this is what they do for a living. Maybe call them.
Wow.
And they said, I just really feel like you need to consider it. We feel compelled that at least you should pray about it. So when we did finally agree to do War Room, of course, I thought that'd be the only time in my life I would ever do that. That was a one-off thing, a great adventure with God, a great adventure for my family. One of the reasons I did it is because we would get to take our boys on set. Who gets to see a movie set?
Cool.
Who gets to just be a part of a movie making process?
Right.
And we were homeschooling them at the time. So I thought, oh, great, let's just do it. It'll be an adventure. But because I'm not in the film industry, I thought it'd be the only time in my life. And so now with The Forge, this is the 4th film that I've been in.
Wow. And
all of them have been connected to ministry and purpose. The only reason I'm doing them for now is because it's ministry. These are clear, unapologetic Jesus films who have great storylines. They have technical excellence. And so they are part and parcel with what I'm doing. I don't feel like it's off the beating path and now I'm going to Hollywood. No, I'm just doing another way of basically sharing a message I would want to share anyway. And, but I still feel like a fish out of water when I write. I feel like a fish out of water when I'm in a film. I feel like a fish out of water in so many ways because that's not what I'm trained to do. It's just an invitation that God has given me. And I use that word strategically, Sadie, because, War Room, for example, or The Forge, they're going to impact people with or without me, but I'm the one that will miss out on the opportunity to have partnered with God.
That's good.
In that particular endeavor. If I let fear or insecurity keep me from partnering with God, I don't know that that's necessarily a sin not to do it. It's just the Lord saying, you're invited.
Right.
Do you want to come or not? Are you going to really let the enemy's voice of fear and intimidation keep you from being a part of my purposes in this generation? So to answer your question, that was a long way of saying speaking probably feels the most natural to me, but all of them really have just been invitations with God saying, you can come if you want.
That's so good.
I'm making opportunity for you too. Yeah.
I love that you said too, that it's not a sin, but you miss out. And I think that that's so much of life. It's like God invites us into all these places and it's not a sin to not do it, but man, you're missing out on the fullness of what he has for you and what you can do. And it's so cool. Like, obviously, God anointed you. God anoints us with his spirit. And you carry that anointing in your everyday walk. You carry that anointing when you speak. When you write, it's his spirit that comes through you. And when you act the same way, like that's why it was so cool watching the movie, because there were moments, and I don't want to give away parts of the movie because every part I would want to really talk about would be like too good to give away. I'm like, no, you actually need to see it. But there's a moment, like there's so many moments where like I had chills and I'm like, wow, this is so powerful, or I'm tearing up. And it's that same feeling that you would feel if you were watching a sermon from you, because it's preaching the gospel. It's the gospel on display through a different, way, but the same power. And it's just amazing. So I know, like we talked about at the beginning, you get asked to do 1,000 things. You got to pick the couple. What about the Forge movie? When you read the script that made you go, I want to do this one? Friends, it is hard to keep a house clean. I don't care what season of life you are, if you're a mom, if you got roommates, friends coming over, it's just hard to keep a clean house. So I love that Miracle Made Sheets are here to help us out in the laundry and cleanliness game. Traditional bedding can harbor lots of bacteria, and who wants to have that in their bed? Not me. Miracle Made Sheets use silver-infused fabrics originally inspired by NASA, and they offer a whole line of self-cleaning bedding that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth. Miracle Sheets stay fresher up to 3 times longer than any other brands, and cutting out all that bacteria from your bed means fewer breakouts, clogged pores, and acne, which I am all about. Staying at the perfect temperature all night long has a huge impact on your sleep and overall health, and Miracle Sheets silver-infused fabric is designed to keep you perfectly comfortable all night long, so you can say goodbye to waking up either shivering or covered in sweat. Miracle Made sheets are cleaner, cooler, and more comfy than even the fanciest 5-star hotel sheets, and they won't break your budget with an insane price tag. First night we tried our Miracle Made sheets, we were sold. We were like, these are the best sheets ever. And then the next week, because we only had one, set of sheets at the time, we changed our sheets to our old ones. We're like, nope, not the same. Wash the Miracle ones, put them back on. And now we have multiple, sets so that they can be on our guest bed and then our bed. We just love them. There's nothing like them. So go to trymiracle.com/whoa to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code WHOA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/whoa and use the code WHOA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/whoa to treat yourself today.
Well, part of the reason why was because the Kendrick brothers were behind it. And I've known these men now for, 15 years or so. It's kind of like the Irwin brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I have such respect, and I know you know them. I have such respect for their integrity and their character and their refusal to water down or sugarcoat Jesus and to sacrifice Jesus and their honoring of scriptural principles on the altar of fame or money or notoriety. So because it was them, that was the first thing that drew me. And I've just been privileged to be able to partner with them in ministry. The second reason was because when I read the script, they wanted me to play a mom of a 19-year-old boy. And I've got to admit to you, Sadie, can I just say,
come on, girl.
When they said to me, you're going to be the mom of a 19-year-old, my first thought was, y'all's casting is horrible because that will never be believable. No one will ever believe that I could be the mother of a 19-year-old. Then I snapped back to reality and remembered, I have a 19-year-old in real life.
I am a mom to a 19-year-old. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I probably do look like that. And just
no, you don't though. That's the thing. That's why when the movie started, I said, wow, she looks amazing.
Oh, well, thanks. But it was
Come
this
on
sobering
now.
moment
That's
when
awesome.
I was like, oh, shucks. I do look like that.
That is awesome.
That's why I wanted to do it, because it's about a 19-year-old young man whose life has changed because somebody mentors him.
Yeah.
And I have 3 sons. They are 20, just about to be 22, and 20 and 15. And what I have known for sure, gratefully in our family, they have a great involved father and uncles and grandfather. So they have a lot in our biological family of influence. But when a coach, like the coach of their basketball team, or when some man they admire because of his excellence in whatever his craft is or his industry is, when that man affirms my son, or when that man challenges my son about his character, when that man just walks beside him and places value on him and puts his arm around him and listens to him, it is remarkable and exponential, the impact that has had on my sons.
Wow.
So when I read the script, I not only thought of my boys, but I remembered when I was 19 and 20, and there were women 10 years older than me, 27 or 28, and they said, come over to my apartment, or let's go have lunch, or I'm going to take you to the mall or take you out for brunch. Oh my gosh, like when you're 16 and a 26-year-old pays attention to you, it is like you just think y'all are buddies. But in hindsight, I'm like, oh no, they were intentionally spending time with me to help shape me. Yeah. And so now I realize how critical that was for my life. And that's why when I read the script, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful opportunity to remind the body of Christ specifically how important mentoring or discipleship really is in all of our spiritual growth.
Yes, so true. And it showed that. It's going to be such a tool for people. And I had to say, from a personal story that I have shared on this podcast several times, so people who are listening know this, but I don't know that I've ever said it to you. And I don't know if you remember this, but it was a huge moment in my life. When I was 18 years old, I, just got off Dancing with the Stars. And again, I just kind of took y'all to that time in my life where I really wasn't sure what was next. And all these opportunities were kind of coming in Hollywood, and they were really exciting and enticing. Although, yes, I said no, it was actually hard to say no to. I remember like my agent at the time said, no one is going to take you seriously if you say no to this. Like if you say no to this, then we're not even going to keep pitching you to people because this is so crazy you would say no. But at the same time, even though I was saying no and I was kind of standing strong in that, I was still like, okay, but do I kind of want that? Like I was just weighing that in my mind. So at that time, I am in Mexico with my family, and I am 18 years old. I'm in Mexico. My sister's getting married. I'm posting all these cute pictures, posting selfies, and I'm feeling myself. Okay, Priscilla, to be honest, I'm feeling cute and I'm posting it. And I get this text and I see your name pop up on my phone, Priscilla Shirer. And I'm like, Priscilla Shirer texted me. And mind you, this was before I was speaking. This is before I was doing any of the ministry that I'm doing now and hadn't like stepped onto that road yet. But I still thought it was amazing that you texted me. I'm like, what did she text me about? And you're like, hey, little sister. And then you go, I just want to say I'm following you on social media, and a couple of the pictures that you've been posting, I don't think represent what you're probably that you want to display. And you go on to share that you felt like they were a little bit, honestly, like they kind of had like a little sexual innuendo. Like they were just kind of provocative the way that I was posing. It's like, you did. And to be fair though, you were kind of right. Like, I mean, I was trying to be cute on social media.
We had never talked before?
We had met one time at the Dove Awards. I'd hosted the Dove Awards, and we met and we had an incredible conversation. So you had my number. Okay. So you texted me and we're like, no. I have to tell you, I tell this story to people as like one of the most loving and kind things that someone did for me at the time that actually made me, like truly made me stop and go, what am I trying to do? Like, what am I trying to show on social media? Like it actually made me because I hadn't even asked myself that question yet. I'm just doing what every other 18-year-old is doing and posting myself looking cute in my swimsuit in Mexico, thinking like, hey guys, look at me. And you texted me that, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. Like that actually is not what I'm trying to display. And I actually came back to you a little defensive. I'm not going to lie. I remember going like, I can see what you mean on this picture. The other one, I'm not really sure. I did. And I'll just be honest in admitting that's embarrassing. I was very embarrassed. But I remember. I'm a little embarrassed too. No. I mean, God used that in so many ways. But then, okay, so that year, hold that thought. That's in November that my sister got married. Here comes December. For Christmas, I had asked for like chat books, which was basically it's like this book that prints out your monthly pictures. I wanted like my monthly Instagram pictures in like book form. Well, my mom gives me this gift of chat books, and almost every cover of the chat book from my social media was a selfie. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, this is like not even entertaining at all. Like this does not actually show my year that I had. This is like embarrassing. My life was it looked so self-absorbed. It was just shallow. Wow. It was so shallow. And that was such a pivotal moment for me because I'm like, one, this person who I actually genuinely respect and look up to called me out. Two, I just got to see firsthand what she's talking about because my life is very self-absorbed and this is what I'm posting on social media, and I actually don't want people to see me. I want people to see Jesus. And so I changed the way I did social media. And here I am 9 years later, and my social media has truly made a lot of impact for the kingdom. I really believe that. It has. And that was me going, this is not the way I want to do things. And so you discipled me from afar in that moment. And that has I think that was probably why I watched your videos to learn from. That's why I learned from the way that you did analogies 2 years later when I started speaking. Okay, I'm going to watch, how does she do this? And I've just watched from afar how you even when you became a mom, how you say no to things and you involve your boys. And then you as a wife, how you respect your husband. And I think you doing that made me realize she's doing it the way that I would want to, and I know we're different people and God's doing something in my life, unique as well. I'm not saying everything is the same, but it helped me go, yeah, I actually want to learn from her because she's doing it the way I would love to one day. And I would, wow. And so anyways, I say that to say I think about that a lot because I tell other people who are listening to this podcast, one, receive it. If someone does, like, invite that into your
That's
life.
what I
You
was
need to
just thinking
receive that
about.
mentorship, that discipline. I do remember being defensive and embarrassed, but at the end of the day, it made me ask myself that question, which is the same thing in the movie. Not to give everything away, but when whenever the man said to Isaiah, "What kind of man do you want to be?" And then he comes back to him and he says, "I've been thinking about that question. This is what kind of man I want to be." And I think that was a really similar moment for me. What kind of woman do I want to be? What do I want my social media to be? And I have been in rooms with influencers that I've gathered together, girls who have, gotten famous for different reasons. And I have told them the story of you texting me. And I've told them that and I've told them about how what it made me ask myself. And so I'm actually really grateful to share that story with you because I've tried to help people receive that in the same way. And then also now that I am, I'm only 27, I'm not a lot older, but there are 16-year-olds who I look at and I'm
It's a big deal.
Hey, listen, let's hang out. And then also getting to share hey, what's your social media about? Because if you're not careful, it's so easy to conform to the pattern of the world and you're not thinking about it. I wasn't consciously thinking this is what I'm trying to put out, but it was what I was putting out. And for the record, no one can go back and look because I deleted them. So no one go stalk my Instagram and try to find out what I'm talking about. It's all deleted. But it was such a good moment of discipleship and mentorship. One of the things in the movie that I loved was that your husband and son was in the movie. I recognized them in the forge moment and the discipleship moment. And I wanted to ask you because I feel like not a lot of people probably, especially listening to this podcast, have ever been discipled before. They might not even know what that looks like. And there's a moment where the guy gives a blessing. There's a blessing moment. There's moments where you're praying over people. People might watch that and go, I've never seen that before. I don't even know what that looks like. Is that something that your husband did for your sons? Is that something that you had already seen? And did you kind of have some input on what those moments in the movie should look like as far as the blessing or the details of it? Oh, friends, this summer has been a busy one with lots of travel for work, vacations, weddings, all the things, but nothing says coming home like falling into our soft, comfy Helix mattress after being away. Helix Sleep is a premium mattress brand that tailors your sleep experience with a range of models designed for your unique preferences. With 20 unique models to choose from, how do you know which model works best for your body, field preferences, and normal sleep positions? Well, you can take the Helix Sleep Quiz, which you'll find the perfect Helix mattress in just under 2 minutes. Every Helix mattress includes a hybrid design of memory foam, layers, and coils so that you can get the best of both worlds when it comes to comfort. And if you struggle with overheating at night, Helix has plenty of mattresses with cooling technology to keep you comfy and cool all night. It's probably our favorite part of Helix mattresses. Actually, when we first got our mattress, put it on our bed, we were like, oh my gosh, it actually is cold. It feels so good. The Helix Sleep Quiz matched me with a Helix Midnight because I prefer to sleep on my side. And when it's something not too soft or too firm, and Christian is the exact same way, thankfully. Actually, he gets way more hot at night than I do. So he was more interested in the cooling feature. I didn't really know how much I was going to love that until I tried it too. And I was like, okay, this is legit. So we love our mattress. We've even gotten Helix mattresses for friends as wedding gifts. And everyone that has one is obsessed with it. Not only do you get a personalized mattress with Helix, but it's also shipped right to your door for free, which also might be in competition for the best part of this whole thing. Plus, Helix offers a 100-night trial so that you can test out the mattress in your own home to make sure it's a perfect fit for you. Setup is quick and easy, so you can immediately start getting the sleep of your dreams. Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/Sadie. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Go to helixsleep.com/Sadie.
Well, hold on.
I know I'm skipping ahead of a big part.
Yes.
I'm like, don't talk about that. I feel awkward. Move on.
No, first of all, it was like you said, nearly 10 years ago. So I kind of don't remember that, but I want to say to you a couple of things about that. Number one, the first thing I thought of were the women who have done that for me.
Wow.
That I can remember Kay Arthur in the most spectacular way calling me out about a couple of things. And I say calling me out loosely, not in a negative, harsh way. But like you said, just like, hey, I want to bring this to your attention, either about something that I was teaching that she maybe thought was not exactly what the text was saying, or some dynamic she saw in my family. And my first feeling was a little bit defensive too. And then in hindsight, you're kind of like, you know what? I'm so grateful that that person just mentioned something to me that I didn't even realize then that I wanted to know. So I guess I just say that to say, as you're saying that about me to you, I just was thinking, oh my gosh, I actually now feel so grateful for the people that when I was 20, 21, 30, 35, that are 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road that made it their business to see about me in that way.
That's cool.
So I'm grateful for that, but it also says a lot about you. And I wanted to say that to you too, because I think that's an example for the people that are listening that maybe are being called out by a mother or an auntie or a mother in the church or somebody that they have seen from afar that just says to them, hey, watch that. The fact that you recognize the defensiveness, but then there was a softening as the Lord just gently sort of reinforced that message. And there was a softness in your heart to receive it. That says a lot about you. There are sometimes a lot of Elijahs, but few Elishas who actually are receptive and tender and teachable and willing to listen when there's somebody that's further down the road that's just trying to help them. And I say that as someone who has been that person who has kind of been like, okay, yeah, all right, I got it. Don't worry about it. But in hindsight, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that woman said something to me about that, So anyway, I just couldn't jump forward without addressing.
I'm glad you did.
I'm so sorry.
That was me.
Like that.
That was me in my awkwardness saying, okay, move past it. I have to get on. And I love that you stopped and you're like, hold up. We're going to talk about that for a second. It needed to be talked about. It did. To be fair, you needed time to respond. I'm like, tell me about how awesome your husband is and how he disciples your sons.
I'm like, what happened? What did I do? But I can see that if something if I saw something in somebody that I loved and admired, and she was a younger woman than me, I can't remember that. I can't believe I did that. But I can see how if it was just if I was feeling a way, that I would have tried to pick up the phone and just tenderly just be like, hey, Sadie, I just love you so much. And I just want to make sure this is the choice that you want to make. But now I'm going to be going back through all of our messages to find
I hope it's deleted. It was 10 years ago. But listen, you're going to have to call me later because there's not thousands of people listening to this conversation. I'll have to tell you more of the details because it was so timely that you sent that. I mean, it was timely.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, that's why
God has a way of doing that.
That's why I'm sharing it, and that's why it was so powerful. Because, like I said, I was saying no to the things the world was offering, but it was hard and it was tempting. And I think I was really in that moment of which kind of way am I going to go? And
Understood.
I think that's why it was like, oh, yeah, actually, I needed to hear that because I needed to slow down for a second and ask myself, what direction do I want to go? And am I leading like that? Does my life exemplify what I'm actually saying I want it to exemplify? And it was
that's great.
Not. And so, yeah, it softened my heart. And I think that's the thing. You never know with a word spoken, even just in the movie, you never know what's going to land with someone. And for me, that day I was defensive, but then I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then, a month later when I get the chat books, I'm like, okay, there's my confirmation. This is not what I want my life to look like. And I remember after that starting to really be intentional about the captions I was writing. I wanted the captions to be meaningful. I wanted my page to not just be about me even. And this is funny, but truthfully, selfies at the time, they just did better. I was going to get more likes. I was going to get more comments. And then if I posted pictures with my friends, I wasn't going to, or this or that. And I just remember going, I don't care if I don't, because that's not what I'm trying to do. That's not my goal. That's not what success is to me. And you have to stop and ask yourself those things, or else you'll just keep going with what's working when it might not be what's right, And so, no, pivotal moment, not to blow past, pivotal.
Thank you, Lord, that you used that in a beneficial way.
It was beneficial. It was a call out. It was the best call out possible.
Anyway, to answer your question about the blessing.
Now that we've gone through that. Okay, but to back up let me go to the blessing, why I said that. I said it because even bringing up your text, not a lot of people do that for people. And it is the most loving thing you can do. The blessing thing, like, to be real, I love that. But even people watching it might go, that would make me feel uncomfortable. Like, they've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And even though that's the most powerful thing, like, I mean, if you get a blessing over a pastor at church or a mentor or a friend, like you said, something rises up in you going like, wow, I can do the things I didn't think I was capable of doing. Someone's calling it out in me. But people have not, one, stepped into that either way, like from a being discipled or a discipling. And so I love that your husband was in that. And I was trying to tie that in because I feel as though he probably does that in your home. So y'all are so used to that. And maybe you wanted to display that in the movie, and maybe a lot of churches are, but maybe they aren't. And so for people watching, like, how do you even start doing that? How do you step into doing that?
Well, to answer your question, for those of you that don't know anything about the movie, The Forge is a movie about an 18-year-old young man, 19 years old, who's floundering. He is raised by a single mother. He doesn't have a male role model, and he hasn't had that affirmation and blessing and direction and challenge. Basically, he needs to be handed his man card by a man. Like, no matter how good a mother is, she cannot hand a boy her man card. Another man has to do that, really. She could be great at mothering. That doesn't diminish her side of the coin. But there's something about a man affirming a young man that calls manhood out of him in a unique way. And so this film is about other men showing up in Isaiah's life, which shifts the course of his entire life. So that group, The Forge, which is also symbolic because when something is forged, it's forged in fire. And a sword is symbolic in the film. When anybody sees it, they'll see how symbolic a sword is. And it comes to a sharpened point because it is put in heat and pressure. And that's what makes it useful, purposeful, and sharp to do what it is that it was created to do. So that's the imaginative picture around it. But the name of the discipleship group, where there are 7 older men discipling 7 younger men, is called The Forge. And within that Forge group, which, by the way, speaks to the integrity of film writers like the Kendrick brothers and like the Irwin brothers, for The Forge, there are 2 professional actors in that group. Everybody else, they handpick men who they thought are doing this in their real life.
Wow, that's
who are
cool.
Honoring God by mentoring young men and discipling young men. And they ask them, will you be in this scene? So that's why they asked my husband and my youngest son. My husband, who I think you've met Jerry before on a couple of different occasions, but Jerry's the most behind the scenes, not trying to be in front of the camera person I have ever met in my life. But the reason he did this is because he thought, what an opportunity to cement for me and one of my boys what I hope I'm doing as their father, which is making sure to help shape them into the men that God has called them to be.
Great.
But to answer your question, Sadie, the scene you're referring to, where these men literally get around Isaiah and bless him verbally, like, I affirm you, I bless you in Jesus' name, I speak God's promises over you. That unique dynamic is in a movie. I have seen that happen one other time, like at a conference where they had men stand up that didn't have the Father's blessing in their life. And they kind of did that in a large way where they had other men at the conference stand with these brothers and they just affirmed them in a organized, formal way like that. But really, this is a film. Most men, including my husband, aren't walking around laying their hands on boys and saying these things out loud in a formal way. Blessing comes about in bits and pieces with affirmation where you say, I am proud of you. God's hand is on your life. Do you see how God is working? Do you see that? That is the Lord aligning your steps. Or when disappointment comes to your son or your daughter, by the way, women doing this for other young women, when disappointment comes, saying to them, all things work together for the good. Like, don't let the enemy turn this around and make this something where you feel like God is no longer with you and walking with you. God is for you. And if he is for you, nobody can be against you. So blessing happens in the car while you're taking your kid to school. Blessing your kid happens, or your mentee, the neighbor across the street, the kid that always wants to sit next to you at church and you're not exactly sure why, but you just keep inviting them into your circle. When you look at them and say, you're a great communicator, even though that's why maybe, like with me, that's the reason why they're getting in trouble at school because they talk too much. But you look at them and you're kind of like, you're a good communicator. Like maybe that's what God has wired you to do.
Yeah.
It's somebody speaking affirmation and challenge, by the way. Because in this film, you not only see men affirming Isaiah, you also see them saying to him, part of being a man is showing up on time,
I love
being
that.
responsible and having character. Can you do that? Stop lollygagging with your life. It's time to grow up and be a man. So you see the challenge, the counterbalance of challenge and affirmation joined together, where older men are basically paying attention to this younger man and saying, we got you. That's a blessing.
It's great.
So the formal way it's done in this movie, it's a movie and it's going to provide a soundtrack and a framework for people who will do it in large settings or who just need some wording to start figuring out how to do it within their own families. But it doesn't have to be formal like that. Yeah. It's just you and that person and you looking at them and saying, God's hand is on your life. Right. And I got you. I'm going to walk with you while you go through this part of your journey.
It's great. That is so good. It's so cool. You've really lived out the message you're preaching on this podcast. I've talked about you calling me out at 18, but you also blessed me at the beginning of this podcast. Every word you said, I literally thought, I'm going to listen back to this and really take this in, what she's saying, because it meant so much to me and I treasure that. And I think, that's what I was thinking about the movie. It's going to be such a tool for the church because you can take a discipleship class, you can learn so much, and I highly recommend that if your church offers that. But this will be that. In a visual way, in a way to really learn. I would encourage you to take a notebook to the movie theater, which I often do because you never know how many notes you... No, seriously, because or I just do it on my phone, but I have to turn my brightness down. So if you're going into a movie that you can learn from, man, there's so many. I remember when the Mr. Rogers documentary came out and I went with my notebook because I was like, there's so many good things I know to learn and take from. And then we just had a movie, Possum Trot, that The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, and they were on the podcast. And I was trying to take notes on my phone because even just the voiceover, Miss Donna Martin, everything she was saying, I was like, man, I'm going to write this down. And this is certainly a movie to do that. And so for everyone listening, The Forge is out in theaters. Go support this movie. I can't tell you how important it is that you show up, that you buy a ticket. It shows people in Hollywood that these are the kind of movies you want to support, that you're interested in, and it helps them to do more movies like this. So Priscilla, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you.
It was just such a blessing, and congratulations on the movie and all the things going on in your life. I love you and respect you so much, and I'm so grateful.
Ditto. Thank you for having me, friend. I appreciate you.